Hey there, Improv Tipsters. Welcome back to Improv Tips, where I and some of the best improvisers in the world give you improv tips and advice to make you a better, more confident, and happier improviser wherever you are in your improv journey. I am, as always, your host, Paul Vaillancourt. Well, today I am doing the fourth part in my four-part series about practicing improv solo, or doing solo improv. It's slightly different, but importantly different. Here's the other three episodes. Bring! You can check those out in the little eye up there, but then also you can, I'll link them in a playlist. You can find them easily and they'll be all at your convenience to check them out as a whole lesson or a mini course, if you will. In the first episode, we talked about an exercise that I use all the time that I've given my students for years and years before current circumstances. And it really focuses on big playable gifts, giving, receiving, and playing big playable gifts, which, as I configure it, is a really great big piece of improv. So I've given this exercise a ton of times. We talked about it then, and we'll talk about it again today, actually, a little bit. In the second second part, we talked about characters and practicing characters solo. And in the third part, we talked about space work and practicing that on your own. Now today, in part 4, we're going to talk about doing solo scenes. We're going to bring all those elements, big playable gifts, characters, and space work, all together. And we're going to be doing full scenes, all right? So I have a few exercises, a few tricks and tips that I'm going to let you know. First, I'd like to tell you the 4 reasons I think that you should be studying improv or practicing improv on your own. Then I have 3 big exercises that I want to share with you, and each of those I have some pro tips that I've learned along the way from doing a bunch of solo scenes and solo shows along the way. So let's get started. So what are the 4 reasons why should we be studying or practicing improv on our own? Well, number 1, it keeps your skills sharp. I mean, we're at home a lot now, or maybe we're sort of distant from our teams, or we're not performing online or in person as much as we would like. So this is a great way to keep your skills sharp, to keep thinking about improv and practicing it even when you're not doing it per se with some other people. Reason 2 is doing solo scenes really works all your basic technique muscles, because you don't have anyone else helping you out, no one else picking up the slack, no one else doing their improv job of making you look good, right? So you've got to make yourself look good. So all those things of saying yes and giving big playable gifts, taking risks and offers, and really being sharp with character, physicality, and all these sorts of things, and space work, all these things are so much more important and really need to be played so much more when you're doing it alone, right? My third reason is that you really get to see all of those things, all of those techniques, really how they play out, because you're the only active agent in the scene, right? You're the only one putting information and effort into the scene. So you get to see, when I make this kind of gift, it has this effect on the scene. When I play this gift this way, it has this sort of effect on the scene. And that is a really great sort of x-ray of your technique. You get to see what you're doing, and more importantly, how what you're doing affects the scene. And that's going to really help you in doing these solo scenes, and also when you're working with a team. Knowing sort of the inner workings or the underlying physics of how this thing affects this thing, or this thing leads to that thing, is really going to make your work all the better. Also, playing solo scenes, really, when I started doing it, I started really playing solo scenes when I started working on my show called Man vs. Movie. Ding, ding, there's a link to some of those shows there. And it is a one-man improvised movie. And what I realized as I was doing that was, in playing both sides of the scene, right, my personal tempo had to ramp up. Even in scenes that were slower, my personal tempo was higher because I was playing both sides of the scene. Bang, 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 right? So when I went back to, or when I continued to play in a team setting with Beer Shark Mice or a pickup show or whomever, I realized that, oh my gosh, I'm used to this higher tempo, so now this all seems much slower. And it was almost like when Neo can see the Matrix and kind of see how things are happening. That's one of the things I think that practicing solo or doing solo scenes really does for you, is it allows you to see the Matrix a little bit more. And then we get back into that team setting and you see, oh my gosh, if I do this, and I see what that person's doing, because it's kind of like in slow motion to me now, because I'm used to going so fast. Also, when you're doing it, you are sort of working on your individual strengths and weaknesses. You're working on your your improv muscles, let's say, like a football player working out in the gym, getting stronger. Yes, they're getting stronger for themselves, but when they go back and play with their team in the next game, they are able to contribute more because they've strengthened their own personal game, right? And that's kind of where these are the virtues and these are the reasons why I think you should be doing it. So now let's talk about how to do it. How to do it. The first thing I want to offer you is an exercise called You Are A. You are a, or I am a. Sometimes I say I am a, which I think we'll probably do in this situation. I am a, or I am a. And basically it's going to go like this. You're going to link, there's a link down below, and I'll really make sure that you can see it. That says click here for I am a. Right? So you click on this link and it basically takes you to a website that gives suggestions. It's like an audience member, right? And you're going to click on that, and within that, you're going to click on the tab that says emotion plus job/animal. And so as a consequence, you're going to get a suggestion that is something like horrified duck. Horrified duck. That's what I got. And that's what I'll use as my example. So here's the whole thing that I think you should do. One, I think you should use a camera or your phone, or at very least a mirror, so that you are sort of performing for something or someone, sort of, right? When I was doing this experiment, ding ding, called 30 pitches in 30 days, I set up a camera and I did my pitches to this camera, right? And every single time, no matter how many notes I had written out and no matter how many things I had sort of figured out ahead of time, when I started saying it out loud and I started performing it, quote unquote, performing it for the camera, I always discovered something new. I always discovered something new. So in all these exercises that we're going to be talking about today, I would say one, always do it for something, either your camera or your phone or a mirror or something, just to put a little bit of that sort of performance pressure on it, because it really ups your game. Whether or not you think it does, right? So here's the exercise. I am a. I'm going to set up my phone or camera or get in front of the mirror. I'm going to click on that website down below. I'm going to click on emotion plus job/animal. And then once I get my suggestion, horrified duck, then I'm going to put the timer away where I can't see it. I'm going to set the timer for 3 minutes, and I'm going to put the timer where I can't see it. I'm going to start it, and I'm going to start talking, right? So why should the timer be where you can't see it? Because because when you can see the timer and you know sort of, oh, I have 30 seconds left or a minute left or whatever, you sort of pace yourself. I don't want you to pace yourself. I want you to go all out for the whole 3 minutes, okay? So I get my suggestion, I start the timer, and I start talking. And then I talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And I tell everything I've got about what it is to be a horrified duck, or a story about being a horrified duck, or sort of the thing that horrified me as a duck, whatever that might be. Now, here's the thing to know about the exercise. As you're talking, you are going to hit a dead end. Keep talking. As you're talking, you're going to run out of things to say. Keep talking. At some point, you might be just thinking, what am I even talking about anymore? Keep talking. That is the whole gist of the exercise, is you have to keep talking and burn through those down parts to get to the next thing. Because what happens a ton is I talk and talk and talk, and I burn through all the stuff that I knew, or all the stuff that I knew I was going to say, and then I go through this tough period. But if I keep talking, keep churning, keep working the problem, then I come to this secondary vein of creativity, and like, boom, suddenly I discover something totally new, and now I'm really A, in the zone of discovery, and B, I've got it, and I'm just going now, right? So I'm a horrified duck, I'm talking, and I run through this low point, and I'm like, oh, it's just going to be hard for me, and it's going to be hard for my family. And then also, oh my gosh, my family, wasn't going to talk about my duck family. And then suddenly, now I've hit this secondary idea, and now I just really go on my duck family. I have all of this to do. And then when the timer goes off, stop. Here's the thing. You need to push through and push yourself and burn through those initial ideas, right? And get through that dry zone, whatever that might be, into that secondary vein of creativity, because you need to feel, the goal for me is that you feel that, oh my gosh, I've got this. I can talk for 3 minutes straight. I can fill the whole scene. I've got that creative juice. I've got those creative resources. This exercise is all about that, and that's why I love it, is getting you in touch with those creative resources like, hey, I really can do this. 3 minutes is an important amount of time too, because it's about the average amount of time that an average scene is, right? So you know that if you're doing this scene alone, and you can talk for 3 minutes, oh my gosh, I can do it. I can fill the scene with something at least, right? Or if you're doing it with a partner and suddenly you come on stage and your partner faints, oh my gosh, I can still do the scene because I can fill it, right? Because I know that I have this creativity. And the thing is, never giving up. That's the second thing that you learn from this exercise. Don't give up. If I keep working, if I keep talking, if I keep following the process, I will come to that next idea. That scene will take its next step forward. And that's super important when you're working with other people in teams or when you're working with yourself. Knowing that if you keep moving, it will work itself out. That's super, super important. Boom. If you stopped here, you would have already gotten something super valuable out of this video because this exercise is that great. But hopefully you won't stop here. You'll continue with me to the next two parts. But in the meantime, if you are enjoying this video, please consider subscribing, liking, drop a comment down below. If you have a great solo exercise, something that you do solo to up your improv game or keep your skills sharp, drop that in the comments down below. Let's share. Let's make this a resource for people who are looking for things to do and looking for ways to practice improv solo. Okay? So the first exercise, I am up. The second exercise is called announce the triangle. Now, announce the triangle is an exercise that I use, again, all the time when I'm working with groups and with duos and with solo. It's an exercise I believe in that much. It's from my book, Ding Ding, called The Triangle of the Scene. It's one of the linchpin exercises out of that book. There's a link down below. If you want to check that out, it is available on Amazon. This is not to sell the book, but I'm very proud of it, and I think that you will enjoy it if you choose to purchase. But let's move on. Announce the triangle. Here's how it goes. The book, The Triangle of the Scene, is based on this idea that there's three parts to a scene. That is what I'm doing, or my big playable gift, or my point of view, what you're doing, your big playable gift, or your point of view, and what we're doing about, or sort of the activity or the place that we're doing it, right? And so if we have those three things, then we're really ready to go. We can really make a great scene, okay? So announce the triangle basically goes like this. And when we're talking about big playable gifts, you can reference back to that first video in this series, Ding Ding, because I talked a ton about what are big playable gifts, how do we give them, how do we receive them and play them. And it's sort of a real meditation on big playable gifts. But in this exercise, announce the triangle, what I'm going to do is we're going to basically say what the triangle of the scene is before we even start. It's a little bit like training wheels, right? Because we're going to get all our ducks in a row, all our pieces in place before we start the scene. So I'll say to me, player A, let's say, I'll say to my other self, player B, I'll give them a big playable gift, something like, you are too emotional, okay? And then player B, me, giving to my other self, I'll say to player A, you are too controlling. Now we know that it's too emotional and too controlling. And then one of us will say, okay, let's get back to the activity. Let's get back to rowing this canoe. And then once we've got that, my big playable gift, my other big playable gift for my other character, and what we're doing, our activity, then we're going to start the scene and just play it out with those three things in place. That's really all you need to get the scene going. And that's sort of taking care of all that, the big playable gifts that we need. It's sort of those things. If we look back at what we talked about in video 2, it starts to form our characters, because what is that too emotional person like? What is that too controlling person like? And it also references video 3, where we're using the where. We have an activity to keep us alive, right? So we announce the triangle, those three pieces. What are you doing? What am I doing? What's your point of view? What's my point of view? What are we doing? What's the activity? And then we play that scene out. It's just as simple and straightforward as that, right? It is a simple two-person scene. And I would say, again, use your phone, tape yourself, film yourself, because when I started doing Man vs. Movie and I was rehearsing alone, right, I would tape myself and then watch the tape, and I learned so much from watching the tape. A, it really helped me up my game because there was this sort of like audience-ish sort of pressure of performing for the camera. And B, I got to see on tape, or not tape, but on my phone, what I was doing. I was like, oh, wow, that's what that looks like. Oh, that's what that sounds like. Oh, that really worked, or that didn't. This is super important. Reflection on the exercise is super, super important. Okay. I'll also say at this point that as we're sort of playing these two-person scenes, one of the things that I find super important is using your physicality. Well, let's backtrack for it. Here are the three most important things. One is say it out loud. Sometimes when we are improvising by ourselves, we want to shortcut it a little bit. It's like, I am the only person in the scene, so I know what I mean when I say such and such. I say, hey, you, and I mean, hey, you, stop. You killed my mom. You're the greediest person I know. All these things. But if I don't say that out loud, it doesn't stick. It doesn't have the same sort of resonance or power as when I say it out loud. And trust me that when you start playing 2 characters, 3 characters, 4 characters, bang, 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 and it's going really fast, you want all your cards out on the table. You don't want to try to keep all that stuff in your head and try to keep, memorized or sort of organized just in your head. You want it out there in the space, in the world. And when you say it out loud, it puts it out there. It puts your cards on the table, and it's much easier to know and to hear and to see what's going on. Also, saying it out loud, you get inspired. As I said before, when I was doing this 30 pitches in 30 days project, I would say these pitches out loud, and every single time as saying it out loud, I would discover something new that I didn't think of when I was just writing it out or just had it in my head. Every single time that happened. And I think it'll happen for you as well. And that's tapping into our creativity again. That's tapping into that vein of creativity, but we need to know how to access it. And this is one of those ways. Okay. So one thing is, say it out loud. 2 is really use your body. Really use your body. Physicalize that character so that I know when I'm this guy, I'm just trying to get through. And then when I'm this guy, because then I can really sharply transition between those two characters. Because one of the things that really makes solo improv so fun to watch and to do is those sharp transitions. If you're sort of like this neutral guy and this slightly higher talking neutral guy, it's like, it doesn't, who cares? It gets blurry, and those 2 characters are going to average out into one sort of average character with 2 bodies. And that's not really what you want, right? You want 2 distinct, different characters. So make those big choices and physicalize those big choices. The third pro tip on this is mark out territory on the stage, right? So I have my characters and my that I'm going to be using, strong, big characters. I have my physicality that I'm going to be using, things that I'm going to be sort of keying back into to get me back in these different characters. And the third thing is, where am I on stage? If the first character is washing dishes and the second character enters and is like over near the refrigerator, then I sort of also have that as another reference point. When I'm at the dishes, I'm the dishes guy. When I'm at the refrigerator, I'm the refrigerator guy. Again, another advantage I'm giving myself to key into or remember or keep straight these characters that I have in my head, right? I want to put them out into the space in all these different ways. Saying it out loud, physicalizing the characters, giving them some space or territory on stage, right? All these things are super, super important because the sharper that is, the cleaner that is, the clearer that is, the more it's gonna happen and matter to you and to the audience, okay? The third exercise that I want to offer you is this. It is basically go to one of those those apps down below, click on it, get a suggestion of a location, and now you're going to start on stage as the first character. Again, set up your camera or your phone or whatever sort of audience mechanism that you've got going on. See that suggestion of a location, and then boom, you're the first character on stage, and you are doing something in the where. You are alive, and you are just grounding yourself. So the things I want to be thinking about as I'm there and I'm grounding myself, and I do this all the time when I'm doing the improvised movie or any other sort of solo scene, is why am I here? What am I doing? What am I trying to accomplish? What's this all about? I just ask myself these questions to ground myself in the where. And then once I start grounding myself in the where with my physicality and my activity and my sort of my little territory I've marked out on the stage, then I'm going to jump to another part of the stage and enter as another character, right? I'm going to enter as that second character, and that second character is going to start with the first line of the scene to the first character, probably giving them a big playable gift, right? So if the first person is doing dishes and they're frantically doing the dishes, the second person comes in, they might say something like, "Hey Tom, look at you, as always, keeping the place neat as a pin," right? So now we know that Tom, his big playable gift is he loves to keep the place neat. He's a little bit of a neat freak, right? And then Tom can say, "Well, it's all those dishes you did from partying all night, having all your friends over here partying all the time." So now we know that this guy is a party animal. And guess what? Even within the context of the scene, I've now laid out the triangle, just like we did in the previous exercise. Announce the triangle. I know each of our points of view or big playable gifts, and we have an activity that we're working on, which is cleaning up after the party. And then, as I said, we have everything we need to keep that scene going, to make that scene go, right? And then, again, moving around through the space, I want to sort of physicalize those characters. I want to give them voices. I want to give them names, right? All the advantages, all the hooks that I can give myself to hook back into that character quickly and sharply, immediately as I move as I rotate through the different characters. Okay, so we'll do that a few times. This is like part B of the exercise. Do that a few times. Once you feel like you have that two-person scene sort of on lock, you feel really comfortable doing that and you can sort of really move around. As we get better and better at that, the space that you have that you need on the stage to keep the characters clear will become less and less. Right? In Aikido, there's a saying that beginners use big circles and masters use small circles, right? In the beginning, we're gonna make big choices, big differences on stage, big differentiations between the characters. But as we get better at it, we can sort of hone it down, we can sort of sand off the edges, we can sharpen it up, make it a little more delicate in the rendering if we want, right? Until we're sort of maybe right next to each other, embracing each other, or physically wrestling with each other. But I know that this little turn of my shoulders and this little turn of my shoulders, that's the territory that I've marked out for those characters, and I can easily keep them straight. Okay? So once we've got a really strong handle on starting with a suggestion and just rolling right into that two-person scene, keeping it going, sustaining it, playing those big playable gifts you've given yourself out loud, right, for the camera, then I want you to add a third person. The first person's on stage, second person enters, and then a third person enters, right? And then maybe a fourth person. Like now you're really into it, right? Now once you've got the two people, and then the third person, and the fourth person, now you're just adding. Now you're just sort of like putting frosting on the cake. Because the real core of the technique is with those first two people. Once you've got that, the rest of it's sort of decoration. You're adding a third, you're adding a fourth. But, and this is super important, everything I've said for two-person scenes is like 10 times for three-person scenes, and 100 times for four-person scenes, and 1,000 times for five-person scenes. Because the more characters that are in the scene, you want to keep them all alive all the time, all reacting to what's happening in the scene. Each character needs to be super clear. You have to know where they are, who they are, how they are, their voices, their games, their physicality, all those different things that you're switching through, right? All has to be super clear. Okay, so the more characters you add, the better you have to be at it, sort of, right? And sort of like when you're doing it alone, you have to be better than when you're with a team because there's no one there to support. You're supporting yourself. Your technique is supporting yourself, right? I want to urge you to give this a try because I love doing solo improv scenes. I love doing man versus movie. I think it is such a great challenge. It really forces me to up my game and to really cleave to the basics of improv. And also, I feel like when I do man versus movie, then at the end of the show, I feel like it's a little bit of like a ta-da. It's a little bit of a ta-da feat because it's like a physical challenge as well as an emotional and mental challenge, right? And so I think it's really fun. And then I think you will see that it really transforms your work as you come back to working with a team. You're going to approach a team dynamic with such a different point of view once you've done this a few times. Okay, so really enjoy that. I'm also going to point you to this video, ding ding, which is Mutt Tips. They have a bunch of improv tips. In particular, the one I'm pointing to is their video about solo scenes. I think it's a really great video. They have a bunch of other techniques, not the ones I have here. I tried to sort of switch it up so you weren't just getting the same thing. But you should check that out to round out your education in this on this subject, and not just because they shout me out. Ding ding, that's what that looks like. I think the channel and the video is really great. Also, I'm going to offer you these. Ding ding. These are some other great improv tips you might want to check out. Ding. This is the playlist that I promised you of all these this 4-part series all at once. You can really see it and use it very conveniently. Thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments down below or hit me up and tell me how it goes for you. I really can't wait to hear what you discover by working on Improv Solo, your own solo scenes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.